What's up, Weirdo Swarm? You are listening to Podagon Infinity, the podcast that opens the door to all things King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. My name is Joe.
I'm Spencer.
This is episode 2 and the very first of our album discussion episodes that we talked about doing in our introductory episode 0. And I am super excited about this. We have chosen our first album discussion carefully, and for a very good reason. I think we might have said in the last episode which one we're going to talk about, but in case I didn't, or in case you forgot or didn't listen to that one, Spencer, what album are we talking about first today?
We are talking about 2019's Fishing for Fishies, studio album number 14 in the discography.
Yes, that is correct. We are talking about Fishing for Fishies today. I am really excited, and I'm glad we could agree to do this one as our first album discussion episode because it is very near and dear to my heart, and I think both of ours. This album is what really got me in deep into the band. I only knew a few songs by King Gizzard around the time that this came out. I didn't really get in deep yet with them, but sometime in 2020 or 2021, a great friend of mine who had been a big fan of theirs for a long time highly recommended that I listen to this whole album. I remember where I was. I remember what I was doing when I first heard it. I was at work. I remember what I was doing at work that day. It stood out in my mind. I was immediately tapping my foot to every song, and it really is what got this whole thing started as far as me being a huge King Gizzard fan. So really special, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and I think I can practically copy and paste your comments as far as remembering where I was and what I was doing at work at the time that I first heard this album, because you were the one, as we established in our introductory episodes before these, you were the one that obviously got me into King Gizzard in the first place, but specifically suggested Fishies to me, and I think it was pretty much directly following the moment where you asked me if I knew about the band in general, and then you knowing my interest in sort of classic rock, kind of that 70s bluesy rock sound, I think you were able to curate that to me as like, okay, you might be interested in this album. It's really, really fun, kind of boogie-ish and good to tap your foot along to. It's a fun one, and I'm equally stoked to talk about this today.
Yeah, I think after showing it to you, there have been several more people who have been forced to listen to this album from me, because I feel like, just from my own experience of being introduced to them this way and from showing it to you, and obviously it worked on you, getting you into the band, I think it's one of their most approachable albums. It's one of their most kind of easy to just listen to and get into right away. Whereas some of their other stuff that's a little more out there, like some of the microtonal stuff or the heavier stuff, not everybody's really into the metal sound or the more electronic kind of stuff. So this tends to be the first album I show to people if they're new to the band or, don't know anything about them. I'm like, oh, check out this one. It kicks ass.
Yeah, and speaking of out there, as you alluded to some of the other albums, we do want to take a quick minute to remind people to reach out to us on social media. We are at Podagon Infinity on Facebook, Instagram, X, and we also have a Gmail account, podagoninfinity@gmail.com. And we encourage you to reach out to us anytime you want if you have any questions or comments, suggestions for us about the show, just things you want to hear, things you don't want to hear anymore, what you like, what you don't. We can't wait to hear from you.
Yes, good plug. Got to remember to keep plugging. Please, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts on this album. So in the meantime, why don't we give ours and talk a little bit about it? So where are we starting with this here, Spencer?
So in the making of this album, and there's actually a documentary about 13 minutes long on YouTube about this. The documentary is called How to Gut a Fishy. And don't worry that there's no cruelty to fish shown in the video. It's just literally showing them the making of this album and some of the band's jam sessions out in the Australian countryside in this little ramshackle-looking house. And it's just so fun to see the band smiling and laughing, having a fun time while laying down some of the earlier versions of these tracks. And you can tell, for the most part, what would become what, and it's just cool to see some of the earlier forms of these tracks before they sort of went to final production with them.
Just to set the stage a little bit, this album came out on April 26th, 2019, which was my 22nd birthday? Yeah, I think it was my 22nd birthday. Anyway, I'm proud to share my birthday with one of my favorite albums of all time. And this was the first album that came out since the 5-album run in 2017. We mentioned that before, and if you're a fan, you already know, but they came out somehow with 5 records in the year 2017 and then didn't release anything in 2018. So this was their first album return since that huge run that year.
So let's jump right into our track-by-track analysis, and let's look at the lead-off track and the title track on the album, Fishing for Fishies.
Fishing for fishies, don't make them feel happy.
Absolutely iconic album opening right here. I love it, just sort of the awkward start of the little half second of noise you hear, and then the drum shuffle, and then he restarts, counts in, and then gets the shuffle going again. Man, this just puts me in a good mood. I always picture myself on like a nice, warm, sunny day, driving around with the windows down when I hear this, and I've done that many times.
Yeah, this track for me sets the tone perfectly for most of the rest of the album. It's fun, it's upbeat, it just makes you want to, like you said, Joe, just makes you want to roll down the windows and speed down that highway, within the speed limit, of course, and just cruise along and enjoy a nice sunny day. And even if it's not a sunny day, it's almost like this song and a lot of the album at large, really, it's almost like the sun comes out for you personally. It's just so uplifting and fun and happy sounding. And we'll get into the lyrics throughout the album a little bit later. The lyrics, as is the case through so much of the King Gizzard discography, the lyrics can be a little bit heavier than the music accompanying it can indicate. But really, as far as the overall tone of this song, there's just really no more refreshing way to start an album.
Speaking of those darker lyrics that go along with the bright and sunny music, Spencer, you got anything to say on that to get us started with some lyrics talk?
Yeah, well, the lyrics on this song aren't particularly dark, but they're definitely trying to make a point. There's a lot of environmentalism sort of messaging behind this song and several of the others on the album. Fishing for Fishies, the song here in particular, this is really discouraging fishing, just as and I think this is more geared toward like larger scale commercial fishing, as far as what it does to deplete the resources on Earth and just, fish. Here's where my music knowledge brain likes to go wild a little bit. There are two contradictory feelings here, and I'm gonna jump outside of King Giz for a minute. This is all about feeling sorry for fish and just wanting them to freely swim as they so please. The Nirvana song, Something in the Way, Kurt Cobain literally says it's okay to eat fish because they don't have any feelings. So it's really up to the listener who to trust here and who to follow. But
yeah, I think I've heard you mention that before. It's kind of funny. You're always finding ways to connect them to older songs. But yeah.
Yeah, but
the angel and the devil on your shoulders.
Exactly, that's a good way to put it. But no, this song is really about being mindful of the environment, being a good steward, to the earth that we live on, and it really makes you feel for the fish. And I love these little fishies that are a part of all the band's artwork and all these little collectibles that people make out there online. I have a Fishies mug that I might have to share a picture of here online. But yeah, the lyrics are just very pointed and clear in what Stu and the band are trying to say, but with the accompaniment of just the most uplifting music, as we've alluded to ad nauseum already in this analysis.
There are a lot of themes involving environmental consciousness throughout their entire discography. A lot of their songs, a lot of their albums focus on that sort of thing. But I think this album is the most direct with that, the most easy to grasp that concept. With lyrics like, "You ain't a god, don't hunt salmon, carp, or cod." What else could they possibly be talking about?
It's pretty clear to me. Want to move on to the next track?
Let's do it.
This is Boogeyman Sam. Okay, so Boogeyman Sam, that beautiful harmonica, courtesy of Mr. Ambrose Kenny Smith. We heard a little teaser of it. It's so good, man. That harmonica that we heard from Ambrose near the end of the title track makes so much greater of an appearance on this one, and this is where Ambrose really starts to take center stage, not only on this song, but for most of the rest of the album. This is where Ambrose kind of shines, is this whole album here. You've got the harmonica, yes, but then you've got the thudding drums once again, and you have a fun little guitar. I don't know how to describe the quality and the texture, if you will, of the guitar on this song, but it's like slinky. It's real. I don't know, Joe. This is where I'm leaning on you for the terminology again.
Sure. Yeah, the energy is definitely dialed up a little bit as we jump into track 2 here. The harmonica is like distorted, and that's one of the first things that stood out to me on this album that I just connected with immediately is that distorted, shredding harmonica that Ambrose does throughout the whole record. It just tickles my brain in the nicest way. I don't know how to describe it, but I just love it. And the guitar, there's a little more distortion here. It's super clean in Fishing for Fishies. And then Boogeyman Sam, we kick up the gain just a little bit. It's not totally shredding, but just the energy, there's a little bit more happening here, a little bit more noise. There's just something happening. We're moving, we're tapping our feet now for sure.
Yeah, and meanwhile with the lyrics on this song, I'll be transparent. I don't know what the heck this song's trying to say. Other than that, this Boogeyman Sam just sounds like a general outlaw kind of figure. Well, up jumped the boogeyman, he ate mama's babies, he shot the policeman, and went down to the nightclub and shocked all the patrons. Boogie, 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 man. Like...
A great guy. We love the boogeyman.
You love to see it, except for some of the earlier lines.
Innocent until proven guilty. We're still awaiting his trial.
That's right. But no, suffice it to say that this track is awesome.
If I had to pick favorites, which we're going to get into that more at the end of our discussion here once we get through all the songs, but it's hard to pick any favorites. I love all these songs, but Boogeyman Sam does something special for me. One thing that I did read, I don't know how they initially came up with the idea, but apparently the inspiration for the character of Boogeyman Sam was inspired by Sam Joseph, their sound guy. He's a engineer and helps a lot with the production and recording of their albums, as well as doing all the live mixing on their tours.
Turn it up, Sammy.
Exactly. You'll hear that sometimes in some of their live recordings or concert videos, Stu yelling that. But apparently it is named after him. I don't know if he did these horrible things that are being described in the song, but it is at least named after him.
I would like to think not, but this track just gets the energy going so well, and the energy does take a couple of, not dips and dives, but it sort of undulates a little bit, and I think that's pretty appropriate for the aquatic themed, at least the aquatic themed title of the album.
Real quick, before we jump into the next song, I just wanted to say that this album, but this song in particular more than any of the other ones, is what inspired me to buy a harmonica and try to start learning how to play. So thank you, Ambrose.
Shout out Ambrose. All right, what's next up?
Track 3, The Bird Song.
To a bird, what's a play? Shiny flying in the front.
So this is an interesting track here. Starts off with sort of the bird chirping and stuff, and then we actually get a new instrument on this song because I don't think there was any in the first two, or if it was very subtle. But track 3 is where we get some piano kind of as the driving main force of the chords and the overall melody of this song.
Yeah, this is really the first taste of at least piano in this sense. There was a brief little bit of keyboard near the end of Fishing for Fishies, the title track earlier on. But this is more like the classic piano tone. And it's a really fun change in feel from the first two songs. Obviously, the first two songs were different from one another. This one changes it up a little further without straying too much from the easy to tap your foot to kind of light feeling tracks. And jumping into the lyrics a little bit quicker here than I think we did with the first two tracks, I think this one goes back to a little more clarity in terms of what the lyrics are trying to communicate. To a bird, what's a plane? A shiny flying elephant. To a tree, what's a house? Is that even relevant? Does a bird know its name? To a bird, what's a plane? And it goes on from there. I think part of what the lyrics are trying to communicate here is all these animals, all this wildlife that's around us on this earth Could you imagine what's going through their brains when humankind is making all these technological developments? It goes from just all these animals and wilderness around them to all of a sudden there's this giant flying metal tube in the sky, or there's this giant rolling box on the road. Or what's a road? What are those black things winding
What is
through
anything?
yeah, what are all these things? Like, can you imagine just all these
scared.
all these yeah, exactly. Like, maybe this song is sort of a commentary on just human development and just busting up all the homes of animals and wildlife. That could be part of this. That's a theory that I have, at least.
Yeah, the most of the lyrics are pretty much all just questions, rhetorical questions for the most part, just to get you thinking. Yeah, like you said, like what is an animal? What does other wildlife on this earth make of our technological advancements and industrialism and all these sort of things, and how it's affecting their homes and their land and their environment. I think it's pretty straightforward. Like I said earlier at the beginning of the show here, this is, I think, the most outwardly and directly and obviously environmentally conscious album of theirs.
Definitely. And I'm going to be transparent here in saying this song, for quite a while, really didn't wow me. And this was actually one of my least favorite songs on the album earlier on when I got into the band. However, I do appreciate it a lot more now. I like the piano groove, just that those gentle piano notes that undulate through the whole song. And even though the lyrics do get a little bit repetitive at the end, I have the Spotify track pulled up here. He repeats, "To a bird, what's a plane," in the outro to the song at least 10 times. And I'm not saying that's bad or that's wrong, but I think that played a part in my early judgment of this track. But in just analyzing like some of the other components to this, both musically and lyrically, I've come to appreciate the song a lot more.
It's a good one, man. I find myself singing along to every word of it. The lyrics are simple and they're easy to sing along to. So this is one I love singing along to in the car, even if it's not necessarily getting my head rocking back and forth.
How about we jump to a song that does get your head rocking back and forth, the very next track, Plastic Boogie.
All right. If you weren't awake yet, I hope you are now. This is where shit turns up.
Yep, pretty much. These lyrics mince no words. The lyrics are just totally bashing any use of plastic, and I like the sort of bed of ambiance that leads off the track. It almost just sounds like a party or a gathering or just people being people going about their day. I think it's really a metaphor for people don't really think about the environmental impact that plastic has on the earth. And so, again, we see this connection to all these environmentalist causes. And yes, plastic is very damaging to the earth, and these are probably some of the most scathing lyrics on the album as far as its effect on everything around us. It's not fantastic. It's going to come and kill us. It's going to be massive. It's going to be brutal. Death will come from plastic. And I love that call and response part in that section of the song, by the way. Yeah,
that is certainly something that makes this track super unique compared to the others, or just compared to their whole catalog in general, is sort of hearing like Stu, I believe it's Stu singing the main lines of the chorus, and then there's this call and response thing. I love it. It's super unique, and this track just has the energy dialed up. The guitars are distorted now. The speed is up. We're moving, we're jamming, and we're pissed off, and we hate plastic.
Yeah. People are pissed off, and we should be pissed off. Here's the irony, though, Joe, and you know where I'm going with this. You and I met working at a plastics manufacturer, and that's not to say that we're just suddenly going to, step out and take a stand and we're going to picket at the doors of the company. We're not trying to say anything like that. It's just realizing just the grand irony of, it's all harmful to the environment. It can be damaging, but in some ways it just makes life so much easier for people. I mean, there are pieces of medical equipment that are made out of plastic. There are pieces for transportation, like not even visible parts. There's some small inner workings of, airplanes or cars or whatever the case, that are made of plastic, and just our society has come to a point where those things are to an extent necessary. And as scathing and blunt as these lyrics are, I think it can awaken something in somebody to be a little more aware, be a little more conscious of, hey, conserve, recycle, do whatever we can to cut down on environmental impact.
Yeah, if anything, I think they are mostly, more specifically, pointing at like one-time use plastics, like plastic forks and straws and plates and cups and plastic bags, all these things that just end up all over the place that just completely go to waste. In the words of the song, fuck all of that plastic specifically.
Yes, it minces no words. It communicates the point very clearly. And again, it keeps the energy going. And I think we've reached a point really where the energy doesn't let up for a while on this album. You want to get to the next track here, Joe?
All right, next up, track 5, The Cruel Millennial. I think this song might be about you, Spencer.
Shut up. Yeah. Yeah. It's me. It's literally in the lyrics. I was born in 1992. The narrator, if you will, of this song was born in 92. I relate to this so hard because in the last 4 or 5 years or so. For context, as we record this episode in 2024, I'm 32 years old. I'm right in the heart of sort of the millennial date range, like date of birth range, sort of. And the extent to which I relate to these lyrics is painful. It really is. It's all about this 30-something-year-old millennial, ostensibly, who is suddenly feeling so shell-shocked about not being able to keep up with modern technology, what's hot, what's cool out in the world, what's popular, what all the cool kids are doing. And I think that's a pretty normal phenomenon for humans in general. Like, there comes a time when everybody sort of leaves that sort of mid to late 20s pocket of, I'm an adult, but I'm still young, I'm cool, I'm with it. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like as soon as you hit 29 or 30 or so, approximating, it's different for everyone, of course, things just roll over to the next generation. That's just the way society works. And I love some of the specific examples in this song. Underestimated technology. I think I surely underestimated technology in several ways. I'm addicted to tablet screens. Not quite, but I do spend more time on my phone than I should, probably. Can't relate face-to-face with modern-day youth. Outdated, the post-millennial will get you. And so on it goes. This is me. I'm the prematurely get off my lawn guy.
Yeah.
And as much as I joke about it, the younger generation is different, but this is the way that it goes with every generational turnover. The older generations object and don't understand. This is nothing new, but it's always funny and fascinating to see the ways in which artists or musicians point it out.
While I may be a handful of years younger than you, I still can relate to this in a lot of ways. And I just looked it up just to fact check. But so Ambrose is the one singing on this song. And I just went to verify. Yes, he was born in 1992. So you and Ambrose are the same age. So this is all kind of from his perspective. I think he's single-handedly singing this song. I don't think we even really have a lot of background vocals or anything else going on. This is pretty much all him on this track, as well as the return of the kick-ass harmonica. He is absolutely shredding on this one. There's a whole section where it's almost like a harmonica solo where he just goes off for a long time. And it might be my favorite harmonica riff on the whole album. It's a close contender with Boogeyman Sam, but it is up there, and it's another one that I really would love to learn how to play eventually once I figure out how to use this thing.
Yeah, I think it's my personal favorite harmonica riff on the album. I just picture Ambrose or even anybody with a harmonica just sitting on a sidewalk somewhere in a downtown area, people walking by, all this foot traffic and all these cars whizzing by, all these downtown shops and restaurants, and here's this guy on the sidewalk just going crazy on the harmonica. It's just like that classic kind of busker, wandering troubadour feel. And that solo where every other instrument, every other part of the song just drops out, and the harmonica is the only sound you hear. It's almost like I freeze and stop whatever I'm doing, and I feel myself closing my eyes and just savoring it almost like a delicious bite of food.
Oh my god, yeah, like what I mentioned earlier about the harmonica, the distorted harmonica specifically, and how it sounds on this album and the way it tickles my brain. This part is what really gets the brain tingling when everything drops out. That harmonica just kicks in like that. One lyric I wanted to point out as well in this song, which it's funny, a lot of the lyrics I didn't really realize what he was saying, and even all the times I've listened to this album. But I like the one line, Berenstein Bears read to his kids, "It's a glitch in the Matrix," referencing the Mandela effect, and the very one of the most famous ones, especially of people thinking it was Berenstein Bears, but it's actually spelled Berenstain, and everyone. There's the whole idea that there's like a alternate dimension that we slipped into, and it's wrong, and it really was Berenstein in our former dimension, and all this, just kind of a crazy existential crisis this man is going through on this track.
That's funny that you point that out, because I never connected those two lines personally. The Berenstain Bears read to as kids, "It's a glitch in the Matrix." That latter part of the phrase, I didn't realize was trying to convey that, but it makes total sense. And yes, I will stand by this. Pronounced Berenstain, spelled Stein at the end. That is the way it was. That's the way it always has been. End of story. From your resident cruel millennial.
Whatever you say, old man.
Okay, get off my lawn.
All right, what's next?
Next up is Reels Not Real.
Okay, yeah, this is another one where the energy is cranked the hell up, just kind of like Plastic Boogie. Not exactly the same vibe, but the energy is back. The Cruel Millennial had a little bit more of a chill vibe to it a lot of the way through. But, man, Reels Not Real comes out swinging, comes in first with that distorted bass and the feedback of the guitars. Something big is coming and it's about to kick in. Man, it just builds up, and it does not disappoint when it goes off.
Yeah, the energy keeps up on this track, and I will say that this is one that I had a little bit of a tougher time deciphering the meaning of the lyrics to. What in the world is going on? That pretty picture's looking wrong. If happy is all you want to be, then I can see that the painting ain't painted with love. This one just took a little digging and a little thought, and I did read or hear somewhere, and I apologize to whoever came out with this explanation, otherwise I would give credit if I had remembered. I've heard that this song is supposed to be hinting at the phenomenon of fake news and what the media can falsely portray about our world and such. And you can read into that a little bit in the lyrics with, "Can't we all just get along? Our candy is melting in the sun. Can anyone be a martyr from hereafter? What in the world is going on now?" I think one of the overarching themes is this world is chaotic, and whether or not the media pumps it up or throws that in our faces more than is actually true, I think this song is a little bit of an ode to, yeah, things might look chaotic, but your real's not real, I think, is trying to suggest that the reality that some people have in their minds is not what's actually going on in the world in reality.
Yeah, I think that's a fair interpretation of it. I'll be honest, I never really thought too deeply about what the song is about. It doesn't quite, this one along with the last track, Cruel Millennial, they don't really have that same like immediate environmental sort of idea. And a lot of times that happens on their albums where there is a general theme and a general message or idea, but not every single track necessarily has to comment on that same thing. Sometimes they have some other ideas and other just kind of worldly thoughts that they want to portray and talk about. And I think this is one of those ones that kind of drifts from that main central theme that goes across a lot of the tracks.
And I love the way this track ends with those piano notes it almost feels like the piano or something is floating away with those ascending notes. It's almost like you're trying to follow them floating up into the sky, up and up and up, higher and higher, and you're wondering, okay, where's it going? And you as the listener to this song are wondering where the album goes from the end of that track. Joe, where does it go?
This thing.
This thing we left outside is Waterloo. You know better in friend, and that is what makes this hard.
Okay, so this thing we left outside is waterlogged. And that's the chorus. That's not the name of the track. The name of the track is just This Thing. But regardless of what the name actually is, I love the drum intro. Definitely my second favorite drum intro on the album. It's different than Fishing for Fishies, the leading track. That's just a light tappity going on. This thing is a boom, 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 and I just love the forcefulness.
Yeah, big floor tom and snare rocking, and you know something cool's about to come in to join it.
When this song comes on in my headphones and I'm at work or out in public, I can't help but kind of bump my head back and forth to the beat, and I don't care who looks at me strangely. This one is one that I will unabashedly nod my head to, tap my toes to, much like a couple of those others earlier on in the album. I have come into the knowledge of this song being about a broken friendship, and this thing we left outside is waterlogged. That part of the chorus is trying to refer to this friendship has been neglected, or it has not been getting the proper care. And the line, "You're a load-bearing friend, and that is what makes this hard." It's always those strong, tight friendships, those close friendships that you have, that when there's a problem, it just weighs on you so heavily. Like years ago, I had this with a friend, and it kind of just casts this dark cloud over your life, and you're wondering, okay, are we going to be able to get this thing fixed? And there's another line I wanted to touch on here. And all that I know is one of us has to wring it out. That line is in there too. And that to me suggests someone has to make the first move between the parties who are arguing or not seeing eye to eye. And that's just really the crux of it. In a relationship or a friendship like this, where things are fractured and things are tenuous, somebody has to make the first move, but there's that awkward period where it's like, okay, do I reach out? Do I wait for them to reach out? There's almost a disconnect between the lyrics and the music on this track to me, and that's not a bad thing. Like, it's one of those bluesy, jammy tracks that just has that nice foot-stomping rhythm to it, but the song is...
Yeah, kind of upbeat and kind of, like, happy sounding almost, the way the main melody progression sort of goes with the harmonica and the guitar and everything.
Exactly. So yes, as you can see, especially if you're new to the band at this point, King Giz is nothing if not consistent. Maybe not with their musical styles, but with some of their habits, like happy, upbeat sounding music, but some dark and tough to swallow lyrics and lyrical themes. Is that a vibraphone that I hear during the verses? That bum bum. I think I have my instruments nailed down.
It might be, or it might just be some sort of synth or keyboard. But I do love the sound of that. Yeah, I was going to point that out too, and thanks for bringing that up. We get some new instruments on this song too that we haven't heard up in so far in the album. There's that, some different keyboard stuff happening. There's some synths that come in more throughout the around the end of the track specifically. And there's also some strings, like some stabby violin strings, which are probably also from a keyboard or a synth, kind of emulating a violin sound. But really cool. We get some new textures and new sounds filling out this whole song throughout it.
I did note that too. The sort of, as you said, the stabby violin or strings, whether they're real strings, like you said, whether they're real or if it's from a keyboard or something. And I think that's part of what helps keep this album from being too repetitive, despite a lot of it just kind of fitting the bluesy, boogieing, rocking sort of theme and aesthetic. Just these new additions and changes with a new instrument added here that you didn't hear a couple of tracks ago, or a new something like that. I think it really helps give the album depth and variety that maybe the casual listener doesn't immediately realize.
It follows the sort of general bluesy rock style and genre throughout the whole thing, but with the addition of these other textures and instruments that keep it new and exciting and keep it evolving throughout the album. And man, speaking of that evolution, I think the next track is where it really starts to veer us into a different direction, especially towards the end of it. But we're going to get there when we get there. But this next track, track 8, the penultimate track of the album, is called Acarine.
Thank you for using the word penultimate. I love that word. I fucking love that word. So speaking of synths, this is where we start to hear a little more of them in the album, and it starts here at the beginning of Acarine and continues on through the final couple of tracks. But this kind of low burbling to start the song, it's really this small kind of focused, it's almost like it's trying to get the listener to zero in on something, and it took me a while to, as was the case with so many of these songs, it took me a while to realize what this song was talking about. And I think this is where you get tied back to the environmental messaging of the album again. Because this song, you can literally read it in the lyrics, I am the honeybee, drink the blood of the tree, I can't breathe, I can't see. You realize right away there's a honeybee, and this honeybee is in trouble.
Which is, I guess, paints a picture for just environmentalism as a whole. The bees are in trouble. So when you Google Acarine, you get a definition from Oxford Dictionary. Noun, a small arachnid of the order Acari, semicolon, a mite or tick.
Acari is my favorite video game system.
So basically, an acarine is a little bug.
It's a little bug.
Little fella.
It's a little boy. Not a little boy, a little bug. But this little bug spreads a disease to the honeybee, and this honeybee is about to die. And there are the obvious environmental ramifications here. But I think what's most impressive about this song is the way things start to morph. Right around the time the lyrics, I think it's around this point of the song, I can't fly, I can't cry, Acarine make me die, buried deep inside of me, buried deep inside of me, buried deep inside of me. I think it's around that point in the song, the lyrics start to match up with sort of a change in the scale or the notes being played to where it starts sounding a little bit eerie. Like, you can tell by the way the music is changing that something is going wrong, something is off, where's the song going, sort of thing. and what I picture in my mind's eye is that this bee, if you were to look at the world from the viewpoint of this bee, things are distorting and getting twisted and multicolored, almost psychedelic, but it's in the context of dying, like this bee's final seconds of life.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think at this point on the album, this is the first track talking about an environmental issue that might not necessarily be humans' fault. Talking about a disease and other insect infestations that are killing trees or killing plants and then causing trouble for other species in return. It is an interesting take on that sort of outlook of this, here's another thing going wrong with the world and hurting the earth, but it's not our fault this time.
You know as well as anyone, Joe, that I am not a fan of stinging flying insects. Honeybees, I have learned to give a pass, though. They're very tame, they're friendly, they're docile, they're just trying to do their job. Shout out to the honeybees, you the real MVBs.
Yeah, sure.
And okay, back to the album, back to business here. This track is really a transition point to the album. The full synthesizers come back, and the listener gets like this, almost like a synthesizer bath at the end of the track here. It's just, you hear all these cool little synth notes just twinkling around you, and then you hear just this almost bassy sound burbling up from underneath you. And it carries you out to the end of the track, and it takes you to the closing track on the album, Psy Boogie.
Oh man, I feel like we're going to have a lot to say about this one. This is, at this point, the album has completely morphed away from the blues rock and into this robotic, synthy, electronic, dark. I don't even know. We're in a dark robot basement, and we're scared.
This track was another one of my early favorites when I first listened to the album. I remember actually the day at work when you encouraged me to listen to this album, and I finally finished it. For a long time after the final notes of Cy Boogie faded away, I was at the machine that we were working on together, just kind of bobbing my head, swaying side to side, and singing to myself softly, Cy Boogie. And you were just thoroughly entertained, and you were so pleased that the album just seemed to hit home so hard for me. But just going back into the song analysis here, you mentioned that the album here transitions away from the sort of bluesy rock, stomp, harmonica, etc., etc. It mostly does, but what I find pretty cool about this track is that it actually harkens back to something from a time when a lot of that music was popular. An early parallel that I drew to this song was the sort of beat and the synth together reminds me a lot of the song Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum. It's that boom, 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 and it's just such an iconic little instrumental hook that was just what immediately came to mind for me. Now, they're not exactly the same, the two songs, or that hook in those songs, but it just called to mind like a very specific era to me.
Yeah, I never really thought about that before, but just listening back to a little bit of that song for a second, you are totally right. It's almost like that guitar riff, but reversed, or it's got like a very kind of similar groove to it.
In looking at the lyrics of this song just before we started recording this show, I think we had some fogginess in our brains as to what exactly this song is about. Like, is this Hantayumi, the confused cyborg who we'll learn about later on in the discography, or is this just a totally different, disconnected, totally unrelated robot? I don't think we reached a definitive conclusion on that, did we?
No, to be honest, this track is, out of all of them, probably the hardest for me to wrap my head around as far as what it's about or what it's trying to say. It's obviously about some sort of cyborg type creature, type being. And, of course, how could you not think of Hantayumi from Murder of the Universe? And also, speaking of, on the cover of this album, it is a cyborg type figure, I believe, that is meant to be Hantayumi fishing for fishies with fire and smoke all around him as the world is burning. So the immediate idea I get about this character is that they are just taking what they need and what they want without any regard for the world around them and the environment. I think that maybe that's supposed to be referential to just humanity at large and people. And also, I'm going to talk about this again eventually when we get into the album Murder of the Universe. But Hantayumi, I remember telling you this, and it kind of blew your mind, is actually an anagram for humanity. So that all kind of connects there in my mind.
Yeah, that did blow my mind. But after kind of freezing and having that brain glitch for a couple of seconds as it fully processed, I just went, whoa, that makes so much sense. So one part lyrically, this is later in the song, that I latched onto is Cy Boogie's fishing for fishies, red-bellied trout in a binary brook. How is it that he is depressed? The humans have pierced through his cheek with a hook. And with you just mentioning that Hantayumi, and this is where I'm led to believe that this Cy Boogie, this cyborg in the song, is indeed Hantayumi. I think this is a metaphor here. The humans have pierced through his cheek with a hook. I think that is meant to evoke humans are destroying the environment. See, it's linking right back to where we started. Hantayumi is the one that was pierced through his cheek with a hook. Humans are just sort of taking what they want and just leaving destruction behind, regardless of the ramifications of such or what that's going to do to the environment or to the world. And that's why Hantayumi is depressed. That's why humanity is depressed. And it's just this weird, like this never-ending circle, this circle of destruction. Humanity is depressed because humanity ourselves, are destroying the resources and the environment around us.
Exactly. Yeah, I think this song is a kind of a big callback in a way to the opening track, Fishing for Fishies, especially with that line you just read, the humans have pierced through his cheek with a hook, talking back to fishing and just using that as an example of humanity taking what they want with total disregard for the earth around them. You know, even this cyborg character even knows that something is wrong, and he was seemingly created by humans and was programmed a certain way and to think a certain way or whatever, and still this cyborg can understand that this is wrong and humanity has caused great destruction to the earth. Another lyric related to that stood out to me is there's a verse here talking about what a mess this poor cyborg is. It says, Cyboogie's ticker ain't flesh, pistons and pumps under graphene lattice, no people to service the mess when he breaks down in spiritual stress. Specifically, the line that stands out to me the most is the no people to service the mess. I think that's pretty telling that humans created him and, you know, they had to service him and fix things when they went wrong in his mechanical structure. But there are no people. The people are gone because seemingly the humans' disregard for the earth and their environment has caused total destruction and apocalypse. The world has burned and fallen apart, and the people are no longer around to fix things. They completely ruined it, and they're gone. And Cybogie, or Hantayumi, if that's who he's supposed to be, is here left all alone to take it all in and think about how terrible those big bad humans are.
Yep, and this song's lyrics are just one final example on the album of how talented King Giz are at tying together happy, fun-sounding music that's easy to tap your foot to and catchy and will get stuck in your head in a fun way, but at the same time with lyrics that are poignant and get a point across and point to some deeper issues that not everybody is keenly aware of.
So the last thing I want to say about the lyrics are right at the end of the track here. We sort of get a slowing down of everything, a lot of the instruments dropping out, and you hear this low, deep, like pitched down and reversed voice. Yeah, it sounds kind of something like that. Thank you, Spencer. And you wouldn't know what it's saying unless you go up and look the lyrics. And luckily, our friends over at Genius have posted the lyrics here forward so I can read what they actually are. And there's also a note here that says reverse and pitch down spoken word audio by Hantayumi. So I think they took the same voice. Now, I know we haven't talked about this album yet, but if you know the band and you know their music, the voice that is the character Hantayumi on Murder of the Universe, I think they took that same voice and then just pitched and slowed it down for this section of this song. So it's hard to tell it's the same voice, the way it sounds, but that seems to be the case. Some of the lyrics of what it's actually saying, Cybogie, yes, is repeated a few times, and then dance with the devil, yes, go forth, yes, boogie, boogie, boogie. And another one that this last couple here really stand out to mean something to me. Now the stars watch their silhouettes. They left Africa dancing. Their apex was dance. Homo sapiens existed for 200,000 years. Yes, yes. And then says Cybogie a couple more times, and that's the end of it. One thing that I'm just making a connection to now about the end of this album, I think this kind of leads us right into their next album, which I don't know if we're going to do our deep dive on that one as our next album discussion yet or not, but the album that came right after this, which tonally is very different musically, but it's called Infest the Rat's Nest, and that album is all about humans, at least the rich people on Earth, leaving Earth to go live on Mars because they screwed up the Earth too much and need to colonize a new planet. And I think that really draws a big connection here from the end of this to that. Maybe, like the lyric, the stars watch their silhouettes could be a reference to space and humans leaving. And like the lyric I mentioned earlier of the cyborg saying, that there's no more humans left to repair him. Maybe that's where they went. Maybe they didn't all completely die off. Maybe they just went to another planet.
Yeah, it could be. It's interesting that you point that out because I certainly never thought of that. But yeah, I mean, the Gizverse is a wild place, and I think there's just so much depth and so many layers to the Gizverse. It's a lot to unpack, and I think that's part of what we hope to accomplish on this show is even if we're not going to find the quote-unquote right answers or the definite answers to everything, I think part of what we look to accomplish here is that, we shed some light on some things that may or may not be connected.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually amazing how much I've been able to realize and learn just from recording the episode of this podcast. I've, reading the lyrics, listening to the songs again, all of that has opened my eyes up to a lot. So really happy that I could learn something here, as well as hopefully that all of you listening learned something as well and enjoyed talking about this album with us today.
Yeah, 1 down, 24 to go.
So now that we've made our way through all of the tracks, talked about their themes and music and lyrics and all that sort of good stuff, Spencer, we need to talk about our favorite songs. And I know this is going to be hard. That's why I've decided I think we should do a top 3 for each of the albums that we do, because it's way too hard to pick only 1 or 2. Most of their albums, I love the whole thing as a whole, and they're all connected in such a way that it makes it hard to separate any songs in particular. But we're going to try to do it anyway. Top 3 songs and maybe a least favorite as well if you feel like it, if you're able to pick one. Spencer, why don't you start it off? What do you think?
Yeah, I was looking forward to this for so long, but then my heart sank when I realized how hard it was going to be to nail down my 3 favorite. But the ones I'm going with are Fishing for Fishies, the title track, the first song of King Giz I ever heard, and I'm a Sentimental Fool, man. I loved this song from the very opening drum beat. I knew I was hooked immediately. So Fishing for Fishies, Cruel Millennial, and Boogeyman Sam are my top 3.
Interesting.
A couple others came very close to me. A couple others came very close.
Yeah, yours are not too far off kind of from what I was thinking. In no particular order, Boogeyman Sam is definitely one of my favorites. I kind of alluded to that earlier in the show. Just that overall, just that plucking, that overall groove of the guitar with the shredding harmonica just really does something special for me. And like I said, it's the reason I ended up buying a harmonica, and I'm going to try to learn how to play it. After Boogeyman Sam, man, it's hard. I think for one of them, I have to go Real's Not Real. The way that song kicks off and the energy and how kind of heavy it is, and then you get the softer verses and all that kind of stuff with the piano and everything. But that song is just unique to me for those sort of dynamics and what it has going on. And that's the one where if I don't have the volume already up, I'm certainly cranking it up when I hear that intro bass kicking in, and I am rocking the hell out. I am banging my head to it while I'm driving around or whatever I'm doing. Safely, of course. Observing speed limits.
Of course. Always.
For number 3, oh man. You know what? I'm going to keep it high energy here and just say it because I don't think you gave it as one of yours, but I guess I got to go with Plastic Boogie. It is the one that, like Real's Not Real, is super high energy and gets me moving, screaming the words, screaming fuck all of that plastic at the top of my lungs. And it's also a favorite of a bunch of my friends, the couple friends of mine that are big Giz heads as well, love this track, and this seems to just be a crowd favorite, I think, because of the energy. So I'm going to give that as my 3. It's really hard not to put like Cy Boogie up there as well because of how cool and unique it is, or Acarine. But yeah, I've already said it. Those are going to be my top 3. Boogeyman Sam, Plastic Boogie, and Real's Not Real.
Yeah, Cy Boogie was very close for me. Unfortunately, you might hate me for this. My bottom track from Fishing for Fishies is Real's Not Real.
What?
Record scratch. I am sorry that it's not a bad song. I don't hate it. I don't dislike it. It just, to me, doesn't hold up to the others.
That's fair. I mean, for me, when I put this album on, I'm listening to the whole thing start to finish. It's really hard for me to ever just listen to a song or two. So I love them all. God, this hurts me because it's one of my favorite albums of all time. If I have to pick one as a least favorite, I think I'm probably going to go Bird Song. I love it and it's great, but for me, it just doesn't have the same energy and I don't know, it's catchy and I love singing along to it, but something about it, I mean, when I look at all the other track names, I just can't I can't put any other track in that spot. So for no particular reason, I still love the song, but if I had to pick any, Birdsong would be my least favorite.
So there you have it. Those are both of our top 3 tracks, as well as our least favorite on the album. Now we want to transition to our final segment of the show. This is called Most of What We Like.
Most of what we like.
Most of what we like is a little end of the show segment idea we had for each episode where we just talk about other things we're currently enjoying outside the world of King Gizzard, whether it's other artists or albums, movies, shows, anything. So, Spencer, what's up? What else have you been listening to or enjoying lately?
Well, a couple of things I've been listening to. One is an electronic artist by the name of Tycho, Tyko. And this person is just a ghost online. There is like no information or background available that I can find anywhere on this artist. But it's really chill electronic sounds with no lyrics except for some there's like a scientist or somebody talking in one of the songs about space exploration. And a lot of the tracks have something to do with space exploration or the moon, or I think there's actually a song title with the name Kepler in it. It's not Kepler 22b, Gizheads, but it's a different number, Kepler. But it's just this serene, peaceful, chill album. Again, the artist name is Tyko, Tyko, and this artist has just one album that they've put out. The name of that album is Universal Language. So I highly recommend you check that album out if you're in the mood for something along the chill, electronic, mostly instrumental variety. And the other bit of music that I've been cranking through my headphones lately, Joe, I know you'll appreciate this one. The 1970s LA punk band X had a side project known as The Knitters. And they put out this country rockabilly album called Poor Little Critter on the Road. And it's just the most fun collection of, I believe it's 10 tracks on the album. About half of them are covers of old country artists, and the others are originals. And it's got kind of a very of its time of the mid-'80s sort of jangly country rock going on. There's also a Johnny Cash cover at the very end that I highly recommend you listening to. And this coming from a guy who really does not like country. I still stand by that in terms of modern kind of pop country that tries to be rock and roll. I personally do not enjoy any of that. But through this album, along with a couple of others, I have recently come to discover that I have somewhat of an appreciation for older country. So again, that's the album Poor Little Critter on the Road by The Knitters.
Yeah, that Poor Little Critter on the Road is one you have had me listen to before. It is goofy and weird, but it's definitely a fun time, and check it out if you think that might be your kind of thing. As for me, my recommendation for right now, or my thing that I've been enjoying lately, is very Giz adjacent, because I need to give a special shout out to an album that just came out last week as of recording this. It came out on Friday, July 19th, and that is Ill Times, the album collaboration between Ambrose from King Gizzard and the artist Gum. First couple singles they put out were amazing, and now the full album is out. It's got a mix of kind of the Murloc sound, which is Ambrose's other band, if you know them, kind of like an alternative folk rocky jammy kind of music mixed with electronic and kind of these other sounds and synths and things. It's a really unique team that they've put together here to make this really cool collaboration. Again, that album is called Ill Times. I highly recommend you check it out. And just my other album recommendation and shout out for today is King of the Mischievous South Volume 2. That is the name of the album from rapper Denzel Curry. It just came out on the same day as that record Ill Times that I mentioned. I don't even really know how to describe it. It's just really good. I've been a fan of Denzel for a few years now, so I just listened to it for the first time the other day. I definitely got to give it some more listens, but it was hitting hard. It was kicking ass. It's aggressive, more so than his last record. So if you love kind of hard-hitting, aggressive, new sort of rap like that, I think it's super cool, and you should check it out.
So yeah, there's your look at most of what we like. That'll be a recurring segment at the end of each episode, and we hope to open your eyes and your ears to some other artists and songs and other pieces of art that are out there.
Yeah, so now that you've listened to the things that we like, why don't you reach out and tell us what you like as well? It could be music, it could be a show, it could just be a cool thing you tried out recently and really enjoyed. You can reach us via social media. We are at Podagon Infinity on the big three of the major platforms. And we also have an email address as well, podagoninfinity@gmail.com, if you prefer to reach out to us that way. Tell us something you like, and maybe we'll read your message on the next episode of the show.
Well, Joe, I had a great time talking Fishing for Fishies with you, and our next album discussion is yet to be determined for sure, but whatever the case, whichever album we may be covering next, we look forward to having you along for the ride with us, dear listener. Till then, I'm Spencer.
And I am Joe.
Later, Gators.
Woo!